So this is a little video to remember Sir Ken Robinson, who sadly died last week. He's a professor of education and most known for his TED Talk, Do Schools Kill Creativity? And if you haven't watched that, I'll put a link below this video, and I strongly encourage you to watch it. It's been viewed over 65 million times. It's the most viewed TED Talk of all time, and it's very funny too, and I'll maybe get onto that later in this video. So what Ken talked about, had a passion for, was the talents of every child, and how our educational systems, instead of nurturing those talents, tended to crush them. Now, personally, in my work, I have a little thing against our notions of talents and genius. I think we often use these ideas in the wrong way. We call someone talented if they just seem to be sort of simply naturally good at something without any effort required. We call someone a genius if they use their talents to achieve remarkable things. And yeah, I guess Ken Robinson was a much more tolerant and optimistic person than I was. He really wanted to transform the way in which we think about talent and genius. He really believed that we needed to start seeing every child as talented and a genius, potential genius. And so his quite poignant example that he gives in one of his talks is about Gillian Lin. And she is a very well-known choreographer who did Cats and Phantom of the Opera. And Ken Robinson spoke to her and asked, you know, when did your love of dancing begin, and how was it for you growing up? And Gillian replied by saying, well, actually, I had to go and see a psychiatrist when I was very young at school, because I couldn't stop fidgeting in class. I couldn't sit still. And fortunately, in this visit, the psychiatrist put the radio on and saw how Gillian, the child, responded to music, and eventually told Gillian's parents, your child is not sick, she's a dancer. And fortunately, again, unlike many other children, she was privileged enough to be taken to a dance school, ended up with the career that she eventually had. And this story, I find, is poignant because it doesn't show, you know, what an amazing genius Gillian Lin is, though I'm sure she is. It shows how talented so many children are, and that talent fails to get recognized. Gillian was the lucky one. And the analogy that Ken Robinson uses to say why are things like this, how have we got this way in our educational systems, is to liken the way we do education to the way we do industrial farming. So since the Industrial Revolution, we've produced vast monocultures of various crops, which have been encouraged through heavy use of fertilizers and pesticides. And this seems like a remarkable innovation. It seems like a great thing, in the same way that educating every child to be literate is a great thing, which it is. The problem with this method of farming, according to Robinson, but also many others, is that by focusing exclusively on the plant, and by focusing exclusively on the maximum yield that we can achieve, we fail to realize the culture that that plant is in. We fail to realize the importance of the soil, and we are steadily degrading our soils around the world through these industrial farming practices. And more sustainable, more organic farming practices instead look at the soil. They look on what we've always depended on plants have always depended on to grow and to thrive, and how that soil can be nurtured, how it can be enhanced through farming practices rather than degraded. So Ken Robinson says we need to do the same in our educational system. We're primarily thinking about outputs. We're primarily thinking about how many children are achieving good exam results or other learning outcomes from the age of 3 onwards. And we're not thinking as much about the learning culture in which children are embedded in. We are not thinking about the processes of education, such as various forms of peer-to-peer learning or group learning, or children going at different paces, children learning the subjects that most interest them, and a whole variety of other ways in which kids really get interested and curious and passionate about things and learn through those methods. So this speaks to a distinction that I often make in my work between outcomes and processes. We love to control everything, we love to achieve all the best outcomes, but when we do that exclusively, or when we do that too much, in the example of industrial farming with maximum yield, or in the example of industrialized education of maximum exam results, we lose contact with the processes that really, in the long term, help a diverse range of either plants or children to thrive in those examples. So I really have resonated with a lot of what Ken Robinson said throughout his life. I think it's a bold idea that every child is talented, that every child is a potential genius, and it's supported by cognitive science and educational psychology, work like Carol Dweck on having a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, where fixed mindset's about simply being good at something. You're either good or bad at maths or music or whatever, whereas a growth mindset, which really helps children achieve in the long term, shows that we become good at things through deliberative practice, through making mistakes, learning from them, through putting in the effort, through putting in the hard work, through being interested and curious. And it's a vision that I wholeheartedly endorse. I think we can be bold. I think we can know there are no psychological excuses in terms of how our minds work, in terms of how we learn, for failing children, in terms of failing to nurture and develop everyone's talents. And yeah, so I just wanted to do this video to say thanks to Ken for his vision and for communicating it so well. It's important, I said at the very beginning that his talks are funny. He's also a very kind of embodied, composed, calm speaker. And, you know, I don't think that's just that he's good at public speaking. I think he really believed that education needed to touch people's hearts and bodies as well as their heads. And I think he practiced that in what he preached and the way he spoke to people. He seems like someone you could have a nice chat with. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do at the moment with these videos. I don't just want to fire a bunch of abstract words and ideas at people. I want to engage in more of a conversation with you guys. So yeah, feel free to get in touch. I'm happy to give any more information on Ken Robinson's work or educational psychology in general. And yeah, maybe have a little think about what the talents are in your own life. For me, it's coming to realise that even though I love thinking about abstract ideas, I also love talking to people. I also love drawing on personal experience and combining those things together. And that's something that has really kind of been a recent revelation to me. But yeah, maybe think, what is yours? What are the talents that perhaps weren't always encouraged throughout your education or throughout the rest of your life, but you know are kind of there and wanting to burst out. Alright, thanks for listening, and thank you, Ken, for everything you've done.